I've always talked about my 5 C's model, and let me talk about them again. The first is competency. I think anybody who wants to be a future leader should have a hip pocket skill that everybody looks at and says XYZ is the go-to person for that skill. Because unless you're really known for something and not just as a generalist, you don't stand out from the pack. But in order to be competent at something, you've got to be a lifelong student, because you've got to constantly refine your knowledge of that subject so that you remain ahead and abreast of everything that goes on in that field first. The second I'd say is courage and confidence. It's a pair. You can be very, very competent, but if you're not willing to speak out, if you're not willing to have the confidence based on your knowledge, what's the point, right? You just roll over. So courage and confidence are very important. The third is communication skills. You cannot over-invest in communication skills, written and oral communications, because as a leader, you constantly have to mobilize the troops. I can tell you, when I first came to the United States, I used to debate and I used to be on debating teams, but I used to speak so fast because culturally I grew up in an environment where people spoke very fast. Fortunately, Yale had a requirement that unless you passed the communications course, you couldn't graduate from the first year to the second year in business school. I flunked the first time I took the communications course. So over summer, I took it again, which was the best thing that happened, because I learned to sync my brain with my output from my mouth, and so I started to slow down what I was saying. Huge difference. So I'd encourage all of you, invest in communication skills, critically important. The fourth skill I'd say is consistency. It's important that leaders are consistent. You can change your mind, but change your mind against a consistent framework, because if you're not consistent, people are always second guessing what you're doing. So be consistent. And the last skill is your compass. Integrity is critical in this job. You can be competent, you can be courageous, have confidence, be a great communicator, be consistent. But if you don't have integrity, if that compass doesn't point true north, everything comes crashing down, as we've seen in recent times. So again, it's the 5C model, and that's what I've operated against for all my life.
I'll tell you a painful story. The other day, when we moved back to our headquarters in Purchase after renovation, I had the opportunity to go through all my old mail, and I found a letter that my daughter had written to me, my second daughter, and I joined PepsiCo when she was 18 months old, and I lived in the company. I just worked all the time, and my desk was being given away to get a new desk, and she said, "Mom, you can't give away that desk." I said, "Why not?" She said, "I slept in this little area underneath your table with my blankie all the time I was growing up. How can you give this desk away?" And I sat back and said, my God, what a memory for her to have.
Yeah.
And then I was going through the files. There's a letter from her to me which I'm keeping, because I have to remind myself of what I lost. It says, "Dear Mom, I love you. Please come home. Please, 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 please come home. I love you, but I love you more if you came home." This is my 4 or 5-year-old writing these notes. So how did I do it? Huge number of sacrifices, huge number of sacrifices, trade-offs. And I think through it all, I might be a CEO today, and I love the job, I love where I am, but I will tell you, if I had to write a letter to myself as a younger person, I'd say, be careful about all the choices you're making, because you will look back and it'll hurt like hell, and it does.
Mm-hmm. But do you regret it?
Regret is too serious a word. The heart aches many times, and it's not regret. I love what I'm doing. I may have regretted not doing it had I just stayed home and spent all my time with them. So this is a very regret is a very complex word, simple word that's got deep meaning.